So last time we looked at what is called the limit and continuity of functions of two variables, and we saw that if we have continuity of function of two variables, and if you fix one variable, you can treat that as a function of one variable, and that need not be. That continuity of each variable is assured once the function of two variables is continuous, but the converse need not be true. So let us just have a look at it again. So the basic idea is, given a function of two variables, some properties of it can be reduced by assigning some fixed value for one of the variables. So by that way, the function of two variables gives rise to a function of one variable, and for function of three variables, if you fix two variables, it becomes a function of one variable. So for example, for a function fxy, if you fix x is equal to x naught, that gives you a function y going to f of x naught y, and similarly the other variable, that gives you the other function. These two functions are normally called coordinate functions because they are functions of each coordinate, right? X coordinate or the y coordinate. So normally these are called coordinate functions. So these functions normally do not give you much information about the function as such, but sometimes they are useful. For example, we said last time that if a function of two variables, we look at this way, example of a function which is xy divided by x square plus y square, xy not equal to 0, 0 and 0, then as a function of one variable, say let us fix x is equal to 0, then this function is identically equal to 0, right, which is continuous at 0. We have seen this example earlier also. You fix say y, then also it is identically equal to 0. So as a function of one variable, the coordinate functions at 0, 0 both are continuous, both the limits exist and are continuous. But as a function of two variables, this is not continuous at 0, 0. For example, along the line y equal to mx, right, the limits are different, so the limit does not exist at the point 0, 0. So as a function of two variables, it is not continuous. So it is not always that if you have some knowledge about the functions of the coordinate functions, that will give you a full knowledge about, complete knowledge about the functions of two variables. But it does give some information in the sense that if the coordinate functions, say even one of them is not continuous, then the function of two variables is not continuous. So they do give us some information, but not the complete information. So we would like to continue this idea a bit more. So we would like to, for example, let us just also look at one thing. When you fix one of the variables, what are you doing geometrically? If you have a function of two variables, z is equal to fxy, and if you try to plot a graph of this, that is a surface, right, in 3 dimensions. For every point xy in the domain, you get a height z, so you get some kind of a surface. And you are fixing, say, one coordinate x is equal to x naught, right, that is a line. X is equal to x naught is a line. So that is a line. And what you are doing, you are looking at the plane x is equal to x naught, where it cuts the surface. That gives you a curve, right? That gives you a curve. That is a coordinate curve. So for each x is equal to x naught fixed, you get a coordinate curve. For y equal to y naught, you raise that plane y equal to y naught and see where it cuts the surface. That gives you another coordinate curve. So these are the intersections of these planes, x is equal to x naught and y equal to y naught. So now we would like to analyze, we continue this idea, we analyze continuity. Now we would like to analyze differentiability of these coordinate maps and see whether they can give us some information about the function as such. So as I said, geometrically, these are the intersections of the planes, corresponding planes with the surfaces. So let us look at the coordinate functions and their differentiability. So essentially this is a picture, that is what we are doing. So this is the surface, z is equal to fxy, at x is equal to x naught. At x is equal to x naught, you take this plane, okay, and that intersects the surface in this curve. Similarly, at y equal to y naught, take that plane and raise it up, so that when you raise it, that gives you this curve. So that is the other coordinate curve. So these are the two basic coordinate curves that you get for functions of two variables. For a function of three variables, you will get a three coordinate functions by fixing two variables at a time. So let us analyze what are the differentiability properties of these coordinate functions. So f is a function of two variables. Whatever we are doing for two functions of two variables, that is valid for functions of three variables also. Only one more variable enters into picture. So let us take a point x0, y0 in a domain D, and let us assume it is an interior point, so that in all points in the neighborhood the function is defined. F is a function. So fix let us fix y naught. Okay, and let us look at the point x naught. This you get a function now. When you fix y naught, it is a function of the x coordinate f(x, y naught). For every x, you can ask whether this function is differentiable at the point x naught or not. So you fix the second variable and looking at a function of the first variable, whether this is differentiable or not. That means this is a limit that you are looking at, f of x naught plus h y naught minus f at x naught y naught divided by the increment, that is h. If this limit exists, then you say the function has partial derivative, because you are looking out only at not the full function, you are looking only as one coordinate. So this is called the partial derivative of the function with respect to x at the point x naught y naught. So to denote that, f is the function whose partial derivative we are looking at with respect to the variable x. X is the variable which is changing, y naught is fixed. So you write f of lower x, x naught, y naught. This is also written as del f by del x at the point x naught, y naught. Just to distinguish, you don't write df by dx, you write del f by, that indicate that you are looking at a function of more than one variable. So similarly, you will have a other coordinate curve and differentiability of the other coordinate curve. You fix x naught and look at it as a function of y. So f of x naught, y naught plus k minus f of x naught, y naught by k, limit k going to 0. So that if limit exists, that is called the partial derivative of f with respect to the variable y at the point x naught, y naught. So for a function of two variables, each coordinate function, if it is differentiable, then you say that is a partial derivative with respect to that function. So as far as examples are concerned, how to compute it is only a problem of one variable, fxy equal to sin xy. Okay, this is defined for every x and y. You can fix either x or y, treat it as a function of one variable. So when you fix x or y, that becomes a constant as far as the other variable is concerned. So let us fix, say, one of them, say y equal to y naught is fixed, then x going to sine of x y naught. Y naught is a fixed quantity, it's a scalar. So when you differentiate, you get cos of x y naught into the derivative, that is y naught. So chain rule of one variable will give you the partial derivatives. So partial derivatives exist. Let us look at the function fxy equal to square root of x square plus y square. For this function, at every point other than 0, 0, right, you can differentiate this using your one variable techniques. Fix y equal to y naught or x is equal to x naught and find the partial derivatives. But that same thing will not work at the point 0, 0, because there will be a problem. So at 0, 0, you have to analyze it by definition. There is no other way out. So you have to look at fix, say y equal to 0, that is x square, right? At the point 0, 0, the function becomes fx 0, that is equal to x square square root. Now that depends on whether x is positive or negative. Accordingly, you get plus or minus x. So you see that the derivative will not exist. So at 0, 0, the derivative of this function does not exist. Clear to everybody? So you have to be careful. Don't ever make the mistake of saying that this is the derivative at all points other than 0, 0, and hence at 0, 0, you put the value equal to 0. X is equal to x naught equal to 0, y naught equal to 0. If you do that, then essentially you are assuming that these functions as functions of two variables are going to be, if you are putting the value and saying this is the value, right? You are saying the limit is equal to the value of the function at that point. You are essentially assuming that these are continuous functions, right? That may not be true. So be careful when you are evaluating the partial derivatives, at what point you are evaluating. So this is not differentiable at the point 0, 0. With respect to x or with respect to y, either of it is symmetric. Let us look at another example, fxy equal to xy divided by x square plus y square when it is not 0 and 0 when it is 0. This function partial derivatives exist at all points or not? Let us find out. When it is not 0, 0, we know that no problem is there, right? At the point 0, 0, what I have to do? fxy minus f at 0, 0 divided by, when you put x is equal to 0, right? One variable you are going to fix. So if you fix x is equal to 0 or y equal to 0, this identically 0 function is a constant function. So the coordinate functions at 0 are constant functions, right? Coordinate functions are the constant functions. Either x is equal to 0 or y equal to 0, doesn't matter, whichever you fix. Constant function 0, that is differentiable, and the derivative is equal to 0. So for this function, all the partial derivatives at all the points exist, right? At points other than 0, 0, you can differentiate by one variable formula quotient rule, and at 0, 0 by definition itself is identically 0 functions, so the derivatives are 0. Similarly, fy, fx both are 0. Let us look at its, at the points other than I have just computed and written. You can use your rules for differentiation. And so at all points the derivatives, partial derivatives exist for the function with respect to x as well as with respect to y. Let us analyze whether this function is continuous or not. All the partial derivatives at all the points exist. At the point 0, 0, do you think the function is continuous? Let us go back. So this was the function. You know, obviously this function is not continuous at 0, 0, y equal to mx along that curve at 0, through 0, 0. Different limits will be there. So all the partial derivative at a point may exist, but the function need not be continuous. So there is some kind of smoothness, but it says it is smoothness along x-axis or along y-axis. In that direction the graph is smooth, but it doesn't say the function is even continuous at that point. So just example illustrates this point, that existence of partial derivatives at all points including 0, 0 may exist, but the function may not be continuous. Right? So this is what it says. Now we would like to have a notion of smoothness which works in all directions, essentially. Right? Like function of one variable, we said we have a condition which is something stronger than continuity, which is differentiability, right? And that differentiability meant that at every point you are able to draw a tangent to the curve. For a function of two variables, it is a surface, right? And what you would like to do? You would like to draw some kind of a tangent plane, right? But how do you draw a tangent plane to a surface? What should be your definition? Geometrically, given a surface and a point, what should be called as a tangent plane? Right? Now the problem becomes more complicated even compared to one dimension. So imagine some kind of a cone, okay? At the cone, if you have a plane, would you call that as a tangent plane? But why not? So there is a problem. Why we should call it as a tangent plane or why we should not call it as a tangent plane? But the idea is in two variables or three variables, the basic idea is, for example, in two variables you want to draw a plane, right? You will know the plane provided you already know the point where you want to draw the tangent plane. So to know the plane, you only have to know a normal to that plane. So like for function of one variable, to draw a tangent line, you have to know the point and the slope of the line. For a plane, you have to know the point and a normal to the plane. Then the plane is uniquely determined. So that is what we will try to define what should be called as a line or a vector normal to the surface. What should be called as something normal to the surface. So we will come to that a bit later. But first let us try to define what should be called as notion of differentiability for a function at a point. Right? So here instead of taking the geometric idea of drawing a tangent plane, because that doesn't seem to work here, in one variable we said that you look at the secant line and try to make that secant line to be the tangent line. Try to approach that point, make it closer and closer. Right? That idea doesn't seem to work here. So we go to the analytical idea of function of one variable. What was the analytical idea? The idea was that if a function is differentiable at a point a, then f of a plus h can be written linearly, right? Approximated by a linear function nearby it. That is a tangent line, right? Geometrically that is a tangent line. So you can write it f of a plus h is equal to f of a plus h times f prime at a plus some error is there, of course, right? But approximation, meaning you can approximate the function in a neighborhood by a linear function. So same thing we try to do for a function of two variables. We try to approximate the function in a neighborhood of that point by linear functions. But linear functions are functions of two variables. And what are functions of two variables that are linear? They are from ax plus by. So that kind of functions we will try to say are going to give you some kind of notion of a derivative. So let us write what we mean by this idea. How do we write analytically? So one variable, the idea was f of a plus h can be written as f of a plus h f prime of a plus some error which goes to 0, right? Now in functions of two variables, right, that error goes to 0, and that is a tangent line approximation, right? So you can approximate linearly. That is the basic idea for functions of two variables. Now for functions of two variables, there are two directions, x-axis and y-axis, right? So we will try to say that you can approximate in each one of the variables linearly and plus some error comes. We'll put that as the definition. The idea is once you have something approximation in one direction and a perpendicular direction, you have approximation in every direction because these two directions determine combination, linear combination of these determine everything. Essentially that is the idea. Like coordinate planes, right? Two lines are enough to determine any point on the plane. So any point you want to determine any direction, you can go in this direction then go in that direction. You can reach that point. So basically we should try to cover the two directions in the definition. So idea is, suppose we have a function of two variables defined in a domain D and AB is a point in the domain. So we want to say what does it mean saying that the function is differentiable at the point AB. So we'll say it is differentiable provided the following happen. First of all, both the partial derivatives should exist at that point so that you will be able to approximate in each direction. So both the partial derivatives should exist, and not only they should exist, we should be able to move around in a neighborhood of the point. So we want to say there is a delta, say that if you look at a plus h, b plus k in D, right, those points are inside D for mod h less than delta, mod k less than delta, right? Some neighborhood is inside the domain of that point where you are looking at differentiability so that you are able to move in two directions. So the second condition is only to ensure that you are able to go to nearby points. For example, this will be so if you have got an interior point, right? If the point AB is an interior point, this condition will be automatically satisfied. And now comes the crucial part. We should have two functions. The third condition says there are two functions epsilon 1 and epsilon 2 which both depend on h and k. We are going to go to a nearby point, a plus h, b plus k. So these two functions depend on h and k, where h and k are less than mod is less than delta. And both these are kind of the errors corresponding to the one variable. They should go to 0 as h and k both go to that point, hk goes to 0, 0. And then what do we want? We want f of a plus h, b plus k should be representable in terms of f at ab plus these increments. So we write f of a plus h, b plus k, that is a point near the point ab, is representable at the value at the point ab plus in the x direction, h is the increment, h times fx ab, that is the increment, plus the increment in the y direction, k times fy ab, right? So this is the approximation, that is a linear thing that you are getting, plus error which goes to 0, plus h times the error function for the h variable, plus k times the error function for the other variable. But both depend on h and k. So I am just trying to draw a similarity between one variable. F at a nearby point, so f at a plus h, b plus k is obtainable as f of ab, the value at the point, plus you look at what is the rate of change in x direction, what is the rate of change in y direction, give the suitable approximations, h times fx, right, that is a linear thing in x variable, k times fy, that is the other direction, y direction, plus error, what is the error, h times epsilon 1 plus h times k times epsilon 2. So if this is satisfied, then you say your function is differentiable at the point ab. Perfectly similar to one variable, you say function is, we proved that function is differentiable at the point a if and only if f of a plus h can be written as f of a plus x minus, or right, h times f prime of a plus h times the error which goes to 0. So that is translated here, but both the variables are taken care of. Everybody understands the definition? Okay. So this is basic thing to remember, the differentiability of functions. So let us make the obvious remarks that if f is differentiable, can I say something similar to the one variable condition, that f of a plus h minus f of a divided by h, limit h going to 0, that it gives you the derivative, right? Can I have some such condition for two variables also? And that in fact comes out from this, because if I write f of a plus h minus f of a minus this thing, what is left with me? Right? And I can divide by how much is the increment from the point a comma b to how much you are going to a plus h, b plus k, what is the distance? Square root of h square plus k square. So I want to compute f of a plus h, b plus k minus f of a b divided by, it is the linear things, that is the derivative, I take it on the other side, divided by the increment, and I want to show that goes to 0. That is the meaning of differentiability for one variable also. And that happens here, obviously, because if I take it on this side and take everything on this side and divide this by square root of h square plus k square, let me just write here. If I write this as minus and divide by square root of h square plus k square, this is minus, equal to this divided by square root of h square plus k square. Then what happens to h over h square plus k square? That is less than 1. You can forget that. K over square root of k square plus h square, that is less than 1. And this epsilon 1 and epsilon 2 both go to 0 as hk go to 0. So what does it mean? It means that limit of this as h comma k go to 0, 0 of this quantity, of course divided by h square plus k square equal to 0. Right? So that is what differentiability means for functions of two variables. So let me write that more clearly or show you more clearly. So that is what I am looking at. So look at, if f is differentiable, then this is satisfied. Take all the terms on the left hand side except the error functions. So you get f of a plus h plus at b plus k minus f at ab, h times fx minus k times fy divided by the increment. Increment is square root of h square plus k square. So that absolute value will be less than or equal to absolute value of h divided by h square plus k square square root plus the other one. So that is equal to this. So you can get triangle inequality less than or equal to h over h square plus k square absolute value is less than 1. You can forget that because it is less than or equal to that is less than 1. So it is less than or equal to mod of epsilon 1 plus mod of epsilon 2 both go to 0 as h and k go to 0. So differentiability implies that this limit should be 0. Right? Differentiability implies this limit must be 0. So what is differentiability? It says the partial derivatives should exist, fx and fy should exist, and if you take this limit, that should be equal to 0. And actually that is a if and only if condition. We are not proving the other way around, but you can assume the other way around. So that means saying that the function is differentiable means partial derivatives exist, and that linear thing f of ab plus h fx plus k fy, that is a linear thing, right? That is going to give you a tangent plane later on when we come to tangent plane. That should be equal to 0. So that is what I have written here. Saying that the function is differentiable at the point ab means both the partial derivatives exist and this limit is equal to 0. That is a necessary and sufficient condition or a equivalent way of describing. If you don't want to write epsilon 1, epsilon 2, you want to go to something similar to derivative differentiability of function of one variable as f of a plus h minus f of a divided by h, limit should be equal to 0, then this is a corresponding perfect generalization of that thing. So both the partial derivatives should exist at that point and this limit is equal to 0, that will imply that the function is differentiable, okay, at that point. So converse part we are assuming, so let us look at some examples. So this is the function fxy equal to x square plus y square. I want to know whether this function is differentiable at the point 0, 0 or not. Yes? Just now we did that example for partial derivatives. What was the conclusion? None of the partial derivatives exist at 0, 0 for this function. So this function cannot be differentiable. Finish. Okay? So this function is not differentiable at 0, 0 because the partial derivative, even if one of them does not exist at that point, then the function is not differentiable. Okay? Because the definition. So let us look at this another example so that the idea sinks. fxy is given by the function x square plus y square into sine of 1 over x square plus y square when it is not 0, and when the point is 0, 0, the value you can put 0, 0. Because if you put it 0, then this function becomes at least continuous, right? That is clear? X sine x, 1 over x, that function is continuous, if you recall. Right. So for this we have already seen both the partial derivatives at 0, 0 exist and both are equal to 0. Okay. Now let us look at differentiability criteria. So we want to look at this object f of hk at 0, 0 we are looking at, the point is 0, 0. So f of hk minus f at 0, 0 minus h times fx at 0, 0 minus k times fy at 0, 0 divided by that. Both the things are 0, this value is 0. So this term is 0, this term is 0, this term is 0 for this function. So f at hk, so that is h square plus k square into sine of that divided by. So what can you say about that? Sine, that is less than 1, so you can forget that. H square plus k square divided by square root. So this is just less than or equal to square root of h square plus k square, which goes to 0 as h and k go to 0. So this function is differentiable at the point 0, 0, right? And actually one could have guessed it from the function itself. Let me just go back and say why you could have guessed that this is so. If you recall the function of one variable, x square sine 1 over x. Sine 1 over x is not continuous at 0, 0. If you multiply x sine 1 over x, that is continuous at 0, 0, but not differentiable. X square, and that is what is coming here essentially. X square sine 1 over x square, right? You have just a composition, one of xy going to x square plus y square composition. So, when you come to differentiability properties, you will see that this is a consequence of that. So, you could have guessed that this function is differentiable, and so this is by definition proving this function is differentiable at that point. But we have not defined something called derivative for a function of two variables. Keep in mind, there is nothing called derivative of a function of two variables. Okay, only it is differentiable or not differentiable. Okay, but the partial derivatives do play an important role in finding whether it is differentiable or not. So now let us try to test, like function of one variable. We said something is differentiable implies continuity, it is something stronger, right? This is approximation by linear functions of two variable. Does it indeed imply that differentiability implies continuity for a function of two variables? And the proof is same as of one variable. In one variable, what is differentiability? F of a plus h minus f of a is equal to h times the derivative plus h times the error. As h goes to 0, the right hand goes to 0. So f of a plus h goes to f of a. Same proof works here. Because what we are doing, we are only approximating the value of the function at a nearby point by a linear thing. H times fx, k times fy, right? And those things are going to go to 0 because they are multiplied by h and k, both. So that proof is same as of one variable, because that is the idea we have borrowed from one variable, that differentiability implies continuity for function of two variables. Look at f of x naught plus h, y naught plus k minus f at x naught, y naught. By differentiability, that thing was equal to h times, right, the fx plus k times fy plus the error. All those things are on the right hand side. Mod h times the error with respect to first variable plus fx mod k. And now we know that as h and k go to 0, these both go to 0. This epsilon 1 epsilon 2 go to 0. So right hand side goes to 0. So f of x naught plus h, y naught plus k minus f at x naught, y naught, that goes to 0. That means the limit of the function, right, x naught plus h, y naught, k is equal to the value of the function at that point. So this function is continuous. So linearity essentially, because we have taken that as the definition, it is natural to expect that that will give you a consequence that limit exists and is equal to the value of the function. So if a function is differentiable, then it is continuous. So we are moving perfectly in analogy with function of one variable. We are able to define appropriately what is differentiability, and that indeed implies continuity. But still there is, one would like to know, saying that a function is differentiable, of course a necessary, first condition is that fx and fy both should exist, partial derivative should exist at that point, right? And then something else should happen. We should be able to approximate linearly and so on. But can we give a slightly simpler or some other version, right, which involves only partial derivatives and no error is coming into picture? That means we want a condition, a criteria, which is slightly more easy to verify, maybe a bit stronger than the definition, but which is slightly easier to verify for functions of two variables. So what we are going to state is next a theorem which is called sufficient condition for differentiability. And if a function satisfies this condition, then it will be differentiable. It is not sufficient. It is sufficient but not necessary. Right? There could be functions which are differentiable without that condition being satisfied. Okay? And this condition involves only partial derivatives and continuity of partial derivatives. So let me state that it is called increment theorem also. So it says, supposing f is a function defined in a domain D and AB is a point such that the following hold, the partial derivatives exist at not only at the point, but they should exist at all points in a neighborhood of that point. Okay? So you see something more is coming. We know we want not only the partial derivative should exist at that point, we want the partial derivatives to exist at all points in some neighborhood of that point. So that is an extra condition we are already putting 1. And secondly, we want, once they are defined in a neighborhood, we can ask whether these functions are continuous or not. So the second condition says that both the partial derivatives are continuous at the point AB. Right? So let us understand these two conditions. The first condition says the partial derivatives not only should exist at that point, but should exist in a neighborhood of that point. Because we want to talk about continuity in the next condition, because otherwise continuity doesn't make sense. Right? To define continuity of a function at a point, the function should be defined in a neighborhood of that point. Right? To find the limit of a function at a point. So for second condition, the first is necessary. Right? Essentially, the condition we want to state is both the partial derivatives exist and are continuous at that point. That is the essential part. But to say that both the partial derivatives exist at that point, no problem. But saying continuity at that point, we have to put an extra condition that the partial derivatives exist in a neighborhood of that point. Right? So that is the condition 1, which ensures that you can talk about continuity. So if these two conditions are true, then they are sufficient to say that the function is differentiable at that point. So this is purely in terms of partial derivatives and their continuity. Many times this is a very useful thing, easy to verify for functions of two variable rather than looking at that limit and saying that the limit goes to 0. So let us give a proof of this increment theorem. So what we want to do, if we want to prove that once these conditions are satisfied, the function is differentiable at the point AB. Right? So when you want to prove differentiable, what you have to do, you have to write f of a plus h comma b plus k in terms of error functions. You have to explain it in terms of those error functions, right? Expand it. So now our job is, from given these conditions, I have to write that difference f of a plus h comma b plus k minus f of a b in terms of h fx plus k fy plus some error. All those things I have to find out, right? So let us start how the proof should start. Let me say what we want to do. Our aim is to look at f of a plus h, b plus k minus f at ab. I want to expand this as something, right? In terms of h times fx plus k times fy plus error. Now, how do but what I am given is rate of change in one direction only. So that says what I should do is this increment, I should divide it into two parts, increment in x direction and increment in y direction, and try to analyze separately and put them together. So that is the idea of the proof. So for that, to prove that, let us look at functions of one variable, x going to fxb, b is fixed, x is varying, and then I am going to fix a at a plus h, the first variable at a plus h, and is a function of y. So look at this as a function of x, this as a function of y. Both these functions are differentiable and satisfy conditions of mean value theorem, Lagrange's mean value theorem. Right? Because of the given condition, partial derivatives exist, so it is differentiable in that neighborhood. Continuity implies they are continuous in the closed interval in that neighborhood. So conditions of mean value theorem are satisfied. So I can apply mean value theorem to this function as well as to this function. What will that do? That will give you what does Lagrange's mean value do? Fb minus f of a is equal to b minus a increment times the derivative, and we are going only in one direction each one. So each one will give you the increment times the derivative in that direction, fx or fy. So we do that appropriately. So apply mean value theorem. So find points. So we get a point C, okay, and get a point D between appropriate intervals, so that f of a plus h comma b minus f of ab. B is fixed. We are looking at a function of the variable x only in the interval a to a plus h. I don't know whether h is positive or negative. It could be on the left or it could be on the right. But the interval with endpoints a and a plus h, the closed interval. I am applying Lagrange's mean value theorem for function of variable, that is x variable. B is fixed. So I will get a point C which is between a and a plus h in the interval a to a plus h. Increment is h into the derivative at that point, fx at that point c times b is fixed. Similarly, for the other variable, you will get a point d, right? Between, so this is a plus h is fixed, right? Only the second variable b plus k to b. So, you will get a point d between b and b plus k, so that it is equal to k times this, right? So, each variable we have taken the increment and apply Lagrange's mean value theorem. Now, if I add these two, what I will get? F of this will cancel out, we will get f of a plus h, b plus k minus f of ab is equal to something in terms of partial derivatives. So, at least I am heading towards what I want. So, add these 1 and 2. So, to get, right, this term cancels and you get this is equal to these two things. But this is not what I wanted, right? It is h times fx at a point c, right, which is in between. I don't want some point in between AB. I want at the point AB and fy at the point CD. So, let us see what we want. Let us add those terms and subtract those terms also and see what happens to the remaining thing which we have to throw away. So, add and subtract the appropriate things. So, let me add and subtract. So, this is what I want, h fx AB. I want that term and I also want k times fy AB. These I want on the right hand side. So, add these two and subtract these two also. And whatever is not required, put them in a box out. And that is going to be h times your error epsilon 1, k times the error epsilon 2. So, what is to be shown now? That error goes to 0, epsilon 1 and epsilon 2 go to 0 as h and k go to 0. That will prove differentiability. So, let us calculate this error. What is happening to this first error? H times this thing. H goes to 0, right? If I can say the inside thing also goes to something, then something times 0 will go to 0, right? But now this is, where is the point C? That is between A and A plus H. And now remember, we had not used the condition that fx is continuous anywhere. Here is the place where we are going to use that the partial derivative is. So it is fx at a point C. C is between A and A plus H and fx is continuous. So as H goes to 0, that point C is going to get crashed between A and A plus H. So this is going to go to, this will exist, this exists. So H times that thing that exists, that is equal to 0. Is that clear to everybody? This is a continuous function, right? What we want to know, this C depends on, C is a point between A and A plus H, Lagrange's mean value theorem in the first step, right? As H goes to 0, where does the C go? That goes to A, right? Between A and A plus H, as H goes to 0, C goes to A. So limit of this as H goes to 0 is fx at AB. And this is fx at AB. So both go to 0, so no problem. Similarly, the second one goes to 0. So the basic idea is, you want increment for a function of two variables, f of a plus h, b plus k minus f of ab, right? If you want to split this into two increments in each variable, so add and subtract one term, which gives you only one variable at a time, right? And that increment f of a plus h comma b and f of a comma b, if you want to analyze, only the first variable is coming into picture, second variable is fixed at b, right? Apply Lagrange's mean value theorem and conditions are satisfied because of the given hypothesis. So you get the points in between and whatever is required you keep, remaining thing you put as error and show that the error goes to 0. So that completes the proof that the function is indeed differentiable. Right, that is epsilon 1 I said, that is epsilon 2. Now here is the point come. See, whenever you write a theorem and you write conditions, try to see at what step you are going to use that condition. That is very important, because that will tell you whether that condition is actually required for the theorem or not, first of all. It may be a superfluous condition written by mistake, not required. And secondly, it will help you the steps of the proof, at what stage, if you know that at what stage you are going to require it, that will help you also the stages of the proof, right? That it is required somewhere to show that the point in between goes to 0. Okay? So that is what is called increment theorem. So very important theorem, very useful theorem. It says, is only a sufficient condition, it says the partial derivatives exist and are continuous at that point. That ensures that the function is differentiable. To say that the partial derivatives are continuous at that point, we have to say that they exist in a neighborhood also. That condition has to be imposed. Otherwise, we cannot say that. So these are not necessary, as I said. There is example, the same example does the job, right? For this example, we have already shown this is differentiable function, right? We have already shown this function is a differentiable function. Let us see the partial derivatives. What are the partial derivatives for this? Fx, if you differentiate with respect to x, keeping y fixed, this is a partial derivative, right? At a point nearby, we are not looking at 0 by, in a neighborhood it should exist. So at points not equal to 0, 0, do you think this converges to a limit as xy goes to 0, 0? The problem will be, this thing will maybe okay, because x goes to 0, this will go to probably 0. Okay? But even that thing blows up, it is 1 over x square plus. So this is a term which is going to cause problem, that is going to blow up. So this function fx, xy, as xy go to 0, 0 is not going to have a limit at 0, 0. So continuity of this does not arise. So function is differentiable at 0, 0, but the partial derivatives exist but need not be continuous. So this condition is not necessary, it is only sufficient. Okay? So in fact, if you take y equal to 0, okay, this cos remains bounded. You can see is 1 over x, right? As x becomes 0, it goes to blow up, right? That is the reason I'm saying. Okay. Now, if you recall functions of one variable, after having proved that algebra of differentiable functions is and so on, the next important thing, the next important result was the chain rule, how the composite functions you differentiate, right? The same is true for functions of two variables, what is called chain rules, and here many possibilities are there. You can combine a function of two variable with a function of one variable. You can compose function of two variable with a function of two variable. You can compose function of two variable with a function of three variables, and all possible combinations are possible. So many chain rules are possible. So let us start looking at least the simple ones, which is, I call it a chain rule 1. So that says, supposing f is a function defined in a neighborhood of a point AB, right? That condition always will be there. And these variables, f is a function of two variables x and y, but x and y themselves are functions of a variable t, one variable we are saying. So x is the function of, they are defined in a neighborhood of a point t naught, where at t naught the value x t naught is a, y t naught is equal to b, and the function x and y are differentiable in a neighborhood of that point t naught. Then I can compose, take a point t, t goes to xt comma yt, evaluate f at that, f of xt comma yt, that is a number again. So the composite function is a function of one variable only. T goes to a number, but in between there is a function of two variables sitting. So we want to say that that function w, which is f of xt comma yt, t in a neighborhood, is a function of real value, one variable, real valued function. This function we want to know is differentiable or not, has derivative or not. It says w has derivative, and that is given by this. So it is fx at the point AB into x dash, like chain rule. This is chain rule in one direction, chain rule other, both you have to add up, because your differentiability set increment in one direction plus increment in the other direction. So always number, depending on the number of variables, all those you have to add up. Okay, here is only two variables. So which in short you can write as dw by dt is, f is a function of two variables x and y, so partial derivative with respect to x, dx by dt, plus partial derivative of f with respect to y, dy by dt. So that is what is chain rule for composing a function of two variable with a function of one variable in the front. How does one prove such things? If you recall, for chain rules in one variable also we went by approximations, right? Same idea works here. So let us look at a proof. I think we'll look at the proof next day.